Today we're installing this Pioneer MVH-210EX in a 2003 Acura MDX. It currently has factory navigation, Bose. So here are the items that we need to install that. We've got 70-1725 wiring harness. It has RCAs instead of speaker wires. I'll show you that here in a minute. And an antenna adapter. It's also got a remote turn on lead, so we'll make sure we get that hooked up. And the dash kit. So I'm going to go ahead and start with opening this. And I'll put a picture up from the website on the instructions. This will go below the factory navigation system. So I'm going to go ahead and cut to taking apart the dash and pick up after that. Alright, here we are in the car, and as per the instructions, this bezel needs to pop off, and then we'll have access to the screws. We'll have to unplug wiring harnesses. Alright, so now we're just going to unplug the harnesses. And it looks like you got 2 Phillips screws and 4 8mm screws. Alright, so now that we've got all the screws out, this should come out as one unit, and then we'll just have to unplug the back, take this out, and assemble everything inside. Just so you can see what we've got here, 2 plugs here for the factory navigation, and then here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I really like to use this tool. It's called a Cotter Pin Extractor. You can get in there, push them down, and push them out. So as you can see, I've got the factory unit out. I'm going to have to disassemble this and assemble the dash kit that we got from Metra. Start taking these brackets off. like there's two Phillips screws right here to hold these two together. Okay. Set the old unit aside. Go ahead and attach the dash kit with the same screws. Alright, so now that we have that in place, this is what we have. And so now we'll take the new unit. Okay. So we'll place it on its side, set the new unit where it goes. And these have holes right here that will line up with these locating holes. So we'll go ahead and get one set in place. And then I'm going to reuse the factory screws to put the top portion back on. And I don't want to over tighten them, so I'm just using a screwdriver. And with provided screws from Pioneer, I will go ahead and attach this. Okay, we'll turn it over and do the other side. You can see here all the options that we have for mounting the unit. So it comes with 6 total screws, so that'd be 3 per side. So I like to go kind of far back. I got a front one here. I'll go right here for the next one. Alright, now we're going to start on the wiring. This one's a really simple wiring setup. It does have factory Bose, so I'm going to be using the amp integration harness. So I've only got my main power, ground, illumination, power antenna, which also powers the amplifier, and ignition. So what I'm going to be doing on the remainder of these wires is just going to use a crimp cap just to make sure that they don't touch metal or anything like that. So I'm going to make these connections real quick. There's 4 sets of speaker wires, so that's 8 total. And this vehicle has the ability to do video and also backup camera, but we're going to be able to utilize the factory backup camera. So we'll just be hooking up the same wires that's on that harness. Alright, so now that we have all the wires capped off we're not going to use, I'm going to cut these off at the same length. That way it matches up with our harness. And then I'm just going to strip back a little of the insulation. Before I strip these off, before I take these off here, I've got some solder connectors with heat shrink to them. And I want to slide those over the wire, just like that. If you take the end off that's already pre-stripped, sometimes the wire will fray and not want to allow these to go on. But I'll leave a link in the description to these connectors. I really like them. And after you see them, maybe you'll like them too. So what they'll do is they'll solder and heat shrink so it seals your connection. Okay, we've got them all on, so I'm going to pull the pre-cut tips off. Slide the connector back over. I like to do these one at a time so that the wires don't pull apart while I'm working on the others. see that solder joint. So I'll do that for the rest of these. So the first thing I like to do is get the band shrunk so that it'll be tight around the wire in case the flow of the solder runs. It won't get out of that band right there you see. Okay, here we're going to melt the solder. See it flowing? First time I did this, I was a little scared that I was going to burn the heat shrink, but everything held up just fine. Alright, so now that all the connections are made, I'm going to go ahead and wrap these power wires in Tessa tape. Again, that'll be something that'll be in the description below. It's really nice because it looks factory when it's in place. I know European cars use something similar to this if it's not the same, but it just gives it an OEM appearance. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this. And if anybody's wondering what the illumination wire does, it's a dimmer, so at nighttime when you turn your headlights on, it will automatically dim the screen on your stereo. And for those of you watching who are wondering, well, where do these wires go? I'll show you. On the back side of the stereo, you have the RCA inputs and outputs. That will be the outputs that will act as the speaker wires. So when this plugs in to here, these will plug in the appropriate RCA jacks. So it looks like it's about time for us to bring the car in and go ahead and get the stereo replaced. Alright, well, we are going to install the stereo now, and once everything's plugged in, we'll get it all back together and see what it looks like, make sure it all works. Actually, once I get it plugged in, I'm going to make sure everything's working. And on this, the gray RCA is going to be front right. The white RCA is front left. Purple is rear right. And green is left rear. Okay, should be good to do the testing.
The school reference.
Restore your credit. The call it your way. Restrictions.
Well, so the stereo is working. Let's put it in reverse and see if we have rear view camera. That's all good. All right, well, I think we're good to go ahead and get everything all back together. There we go, back together, looking good. All right, the unit is installed, and we are going to turn the air on. It's kind of warm today, and as you can see, the navigation on this vehicle still works. All right, so radio, Bluetooth. I'm gonna go ahead and set up my Bluetooth to make sure everything's working. pair a new device. MVH-210EX. Yes. Pair. Alright, so I'm going to go to Pandora. That's not copyright. So everything's working great. Go back through the menu here. So the USB is not plugged in. USB is not plugged in, so that's not lighting up. That's an aux video input. So everything, that's all there is to it. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Your settings. Aux input, we're not using it, we can turn it off. Camera settings, camera's not on, so we'll shut that off. System, so language is English. Dimmer settings, beep, tone, shut that off. So that's really all there is to it. You can turn the display off while you're driving. Mute.
Why do you care?
Alright, just wanted to come back and show you that I did put the USB down in the not an ashtray section, so it can be neatly tucked away. Again, here's the overall install. 2003 Acura MDX. This has the navigation. It also has the rear seat entertainment, which does not work. So if you like this kind of content, subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll be putting out more content like this.